There comes a time in any game's release when you have to think and consider how can we challenge ourselves to provide a new experience for the players and keep things fresh and new while also sticking to the standards that we have to uphold. Honkai Star Rail enters its first anniversary with a lot to live up to, but also a lot to offer as well. Acheron is the first of many passion projects for the game, and it shows just how much they're willing to break out of the box of what we consider to be the norm, and depending on how well she does, can really alter the game forever. In this video, let's go over what exactly Acheron does and just show some real appreciation for her as a character. Now, I won't lie to you, everything about Acheron hits the right buttons in my brain to let the neuron activation kick in, and I've got to give them props with how they're handling it as well. So, I just want to go over exactly what she does, because this leads into my points overall. Acheron is a DPS unit following the Nihility path that focuses on building stacks based on debuffs that are applied to the enemies. For each stack that is planted onto the targets, she'll additionally gain 1 stack, which will then be added to her ultimate wheel. By using her skill, she's able to generate 1 point for this wheel without any extra condition. Additionally, when pairing her up with teammates that can also apply debuffs, they'll also be able to generate her points for the wheel. And it's not only your teammates applying debuffs, enemies applying debuffs as well will count for the wheel, and it seems to have a cap of 1 point gained per instance of debuff placed, so you can't get multiple stacks in one given action. I say wheel because when I look at her charging gauge, it just looks like a spinning wheel, and I would very much like to watch it spin. After accumulating 9 stacks, she'll then be able to use her ultimate, dealing damage to specific targets of her choosing for a 3-part combo, and then finally attacking all of the enemies that are on the field for one final AoE attack. One great thing I want to mention is that while this wheel does replace the energy bar, each of these stacks have nothing to do with energy. And this is where we lead into the most interesting part about Acheron. She's our first DPS, or honestly our first character that has nothing to do with energy. The goal behind Acheron is to get as much debuffs implanted as possible, no matter the source, to be able to get her ultimates as fast as possible. I also just want to give an honorable mention to her technique, which essentially kills small enemies without having to enter battle. Well, honestly, I say honorable mention, but I think the idea of her being able to save me time of entering the battle and going through the entire sequence, then having to run to the next enemy and do the battles all over again is actually quite the hassle. Acheron saves me time, and time means I'll have more time to stare her idle animations as I watch her eat a peach in peace. And there's nothing you can do to stop me from enjoying this moment. Now, honestly speaking, you may not think this is anything too crazy or important, but I need you to understand a few things. This isn't about Acheron. Well, it is. This is an Acheron appreciation video, but this is more about the actions that are being taken when putting into consideration about Acheron. Honkai Star Rail has always had the same gameplay loop, with some defining ways to improve or change how you play the game. There's so many different combinations and possibilities that are presented in the game, and they allow you to be able to play the way you want to play. Damage over time is one of the big examples that comes to mind when I try to explain play the way you want to play. Dot is one of those playstyles where a lot of players would rather not have to deal with it, or rather it requires too much of an investment for you to even want to try and bridge that gap. But it is a specific playstyle that has been introduced, and allows for the dev team to be able to build around, as well as us as players to be able to say, hey, you know, this seems like it would be super fun. I think I'm going to make this my main team. Shoutouts to myself, Kafka, and Black Swan have me in a chokehold. Follow-up teams is another thing that gains more traction, especially with Aventry now on the way as a preservation unit who can also deal damage with follow-ups. This was sort of a feature in the game for a long time with the Erudition units at the launch of the game, and Yanqing, but we'll speak about Yanqing. But then we've gotten more characters that are starting to become dedicated follow-up attackers, such as our Dr. Ratio, who I still think is free until the end of 2.1, and Topaz, who's got a Trotter for a partner that goes incredibly ham. This is another archetype in the game that's being built on right now and gaining more tools. Oh yeah, let's not forget about our hypercarry compositions and our dual DPS compositions. These are all unique playstyles that are introduced into the game, and each one of them plays very differently, and offers a lot of variety in terms of how you can go about it. And no one person will play the same team in the same way as another person, because everyone's results will yield differently, and that's what's exciting. Now, with all of those playstyles, where does Acheron fit in? In relative terms, yeah, maybe you can throw her into any of these sort of team compositions. She'd probably most directly fit into terms of hypercarry, but Let's face it, Acheron is a powerhouse, but she won't be able to play in your traditional team, and that's because of her lack of an energy requirement. Every team in Honkai Star Rail to this date all revolve around the importance of generating your ultimate, while also managing your energy to try and get your ultimates to line up in the most efficient way as possible. While it is true in theory that you could still just run your teams with Acheron in the traditional way, it is by far, if not considered the right way to play her. Debuffs are her mastery, and with that comes a set of limited options to be able to fully take advantage and utilize that advantage of hers. That breaks out of this standard norm that we've grown so comfortable with, thus introducing the new playstyle into the mix, in a quite unique way as possible. This is where Star Rail is now entering its new stages. We're breaking free of this norm of gameplay standards, and we're opening wide the waves to be able to increase the variety that the game will have to offer. It was stated in the 2.1 livestream how challenging it was to be able to introduce a character like Acheron, who essentially just plays on a different system than what the game has for standard play. But you know the best part about all of this? They actually managed to do it. Acheron's the first of many characters in the future to allow for us to experience the game in a way that was never considered before. It shows the willingness to be able to even attempt different types of unit variety that wasn't originally even possible, and it helps us to feel surprised and look forward to each unit more and more, because it means that the possibilities of a unit in the future being able to do something like this is now on the table, and this is just the beginning of what could possibly be one of the next big features or experiments for the game. Acheron is the stepping stone for what's to come into the game in the future. There's the possibility that she's just special, and that she could be a one-off character, but I don't think that's true. I think she's an ambitious step to show that they're more than willing to see a vision through for a character, no matter the extra steps that are needed to be done to make it happen. I'm very much looking forward to Acheron's release, and I really do feel as if that the world is truly opening up for Honkai Star Rail. The excitement that comes to mind when I see a character like this releasing just means that in the future, there's always something to look forward to, because you really don't know what's next under their sleeve. I truly do think that's what makes pulling for units that are new that much more enjoyable. And that's all I've got for this video. Thanks for watching. I just had a lot of fun gushing about how important it is I think it is to have a character like Acheron introduced into the game, and even if it is just a one-off character. The idea and possibility that something like this can happen means there's now a non-zero chance that it can happen again. And if you couldn't tell already, maybe I'm a little bit too passionate for this game. We'll talk about Acheron and the others in another video, but for now, comment down below what you're most looking forward to in the 2.1 patch, or if there's anything I can improve on. Until next time, peace.